I'm joined now by All Rise News' Adam Klasfeld. Adam, we had a major update today as one of Donald Trump's top immigration officials got caught lying under oath, and a judge did not let it pass. Can you explain what happened in court?
So what happened was a federal judge, U.S. District Judge Sarah Ellis, has said in court during a hearing for a preliminary injunction in a case involving federal occupation of Chicago that Greg Bovino, the commander of Trump's Operation Midway Blitz, admitted that he lied. That's a quote, admitted that he lied in a deposition. This is according to reporting by the Chicago Sun-Times and a couple of other outlets. They gave some examples of some of the stuff that he's said to have lied about. One of them involved there was this passage of the deposition. There's video of this where he was talking about a video showing him tackling an older man. And he was asked about this incident in the deposition, and he said, no, that didn't happen. And you can see during the deposition footage, the lawyer appears stunned and asks him again. So if someone is looking at this video of you tackling someone, you would tell that person, don't believe your lying eyes. So, according to the judge, he later admitted that was a lie. There were a couple of other passages of the deposition. There was another one where he was asked about a pepper ball incident where a clergyman from a Protestant clergyman who was pepperballed by a federal officer at an elevation. He claimed he didn't witness it. The judge said that was a lie. Then there was another famous incident where folks have probably seen the photo of Greg Bovino, the commander of this so-called Operation Midway Blitz in Chicago, tossing a tear gas canister. And the tear gas canister, he said he had to toss it because he could have been pelted with a rock by a protester. He admitted, apparently, according to the judge, according to reports from the courtroom, that he was not, in fact, hit by a rock, which was the central justification for tossing a tear gas canister into a crowd. So these are multiple incidents. It all came out during a hearing, and at the end of that hearing, the federal judge, Judge Ellis, issued an injunction blocking Bovino and the agents that he supervises in Chicago from violating the rights of journalists, protesters, and clergy.
In other words, does it seem like judges are finally not offering the presumption of regularity or this deference that we had been seeing for so long? And I know you and I have spoken about this idea of conferring a presumption of regularity to the federal government because for decades and decades and decades, you believe what the federal government has said, and yet this administration uniquely is perfectly content to lie, to lie its ass off if it feels the need to in front of these judges, and yet still there had been this presumption of regularity. Does it feel like that's gone away in an instance like this?
It just keeps on happening. It happens in the case of Kilmar Abrego Garcia. It happened in the case here. It's happening across the country. It's happening in cases where just the same day, the sandwich thrower case, the jury tossed that out, and it's part of a pattern. That again is immigration agents, where a case you can't take these agencies at their word, and juries aren't, and federal judges are not. And today, the fact that the federal judge said that he admitted that these were lies, absolutely led to this bombshell order. And I'll say another thing here. This is the case, and it was a case brought by a coalition of journalists, protesters, and clergy that where the judge had Bovino on such a short leash. She originally issued an order forcing him to check in with her every day. A federal appeals court thought that was a little bit too much, that it was, they commented that it was having her as an inquisitor rather than a neutral arbiter. But I think that she's creating a record here. She's saying This is when you have this person in a deposition face to face with, having to answer questions for a court proceeding. He is admitting to lie after lie after lie. So I think that when this case goes on appeal, she's created a record to the Seventh Circuit. Don't disturb it because, as you said, Brian, there's no presumption of regularity here. These people are not telling the truth and they keep doing that.
So we've seen the consequences as it relates to this specific case. Obviously, the judge issued this injunction, and so the Trump administration wasn't successful. But in terms of Bovino himself lying under oath, would this normally be a situation where the judge could also hold him in contempt?
This is a situation where one would usually expect that to happen. I wasn't in the court today when she made that remark. I don't know why she didn't take that additional action. When someone lies in a deposition, a government official, that is a big deal in a normal era, in a normal
Right.
administration at minimum.
Keyword normal, yeah.
Right. Someone would lose their job. There might be a criminal referral. Now, if that is happening to the Justice Department of Pam Bondi, good luck. But this administration won't be here forever. It's a very serious deal to have a federal judge say, and this is reports straight from the Chicago Sun-Times and a local PBS station. The judge said in no uncertain terms, the quote was, admitted that he lied. And it's not a small matter when you do that in a deposition, let alone if you are the commander of a major immigration operation in a major American city.
You said something interesting there. This administration won't be in power forever. First of all, putting aside the fact that will be against their will, because I think this administration has every intention of trying to be in power forever. But that notwithstanding, does that suggest that the statute of limitations might be long enough that in the event that this administration was out of power, there would still be legal exposure for somebody like Bovino?
Well, I don't have the statute in front of me, but I will say this. When right now we have the ongoing prosecution of James Comey, that was a 5-year statute of limitations for false statements to Congress, and it was prosecuted just under the wire. If a subsequent administration finds that, yes, they can prove a knowing lie under oath, that would be something that could be considered under a false statement charge. Now, I don't know all of the backstory here. I don't know what led the judge to say that, but absolutely, there is a 5-year statute of limitations, at least under the same charge, false statements to Congress that the James Comey case is about, and something similar. If we're talking about a deposition, depositions are always sworn. That is something that is dead serious.
I mean, that would betray a pretty high degree of cockiness to know that you're lying under oath, to know that you shoulder legal exposure by virtue of doing it, to know that it's a federal crime, and yet to do it anyway because you're just that certain that there will never be any accountability for any of your actions.
Right. It's when I saw that reporting from the courtroom and the quotation, direct quotation from a federal judge saying admitted that he lied. Now, the central part of any perjury case is intent. Did you intend to mislead the court? To lie implies intent. So that is a bombshell quote from a federal judge
Yeah.
who's seen the evidence, who's seen the deposition, and to say that this is an admission. So the building of a case is an entirely different matter, but that is enormous news, almost as big news as the injunction itself that this led to.
And I just want to talk about that to finish up here. Can you talk a little bit more about what we can expect as the result of this injunction?
So I'm sure it is already, for example, under appeal. There's going to be extensive litigation. I think one consequence of admitting that one lies is that you weaken your litigation
Yeah.
position once this goes
Well, it would
up.
make sense, right? Because if you were in a position where the facts would speak for themselves, then you don't need to lie. And so that kind of betrays the innate weakness of that case.
Right. I mean, you hurt your credibility if you knowingly lie, if you admit that you lie. And we haven't seen her written opinion. The written opinion is going to hit the docket, and we'll go through it. But I'm sure that she's carefully built a record over the course of the hearings that have gone into all of this. So there's an appellate road ahead, but for the time being, there is an active injunction blocking law enforcement from violating the rights of these journalists, protesters, and clergy, which I think is a relief to anyone in Chicago who wants to assert their rights. Now, whether they follow this order, this has been, they've been under a TRO and there's been some problems with enforcing the order, but this is where the rubber hits the road. Now there's an injunction, now there's a series of findings, and hopefully that leads to some accountability and constraint.
Well, we will, of course, stay on top of this. For those who are watching right now, if you'd like to support Adam's work and independent media more broadly, a great way to do that is to subscribe to All Rise News. That's his independent media outlet. He's not part of some major media conglomerate, and he often travels across the country to be able to cover this stuff in person. So any subscriptions that you take to All Rise News directly supports him and his efforts. So again, I'm going to put that link right here on the screen and also in the post description of this video. If you'd like to support my work and continue watching these videos, including interviews with Adam, I'm going to put the subscribe link to this channel on the screen as well. Thanks so much, Adam.
Thanks so much, Brian. Always a pleasure.